What's up, YouTube Zero here, and today I have an amazing Rampardos and Silvally deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of the cards individually, and I'll talk about them combined with each other and why this deck works really well. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. I do a bunch of other video games, so feel free to check those out as well. Without further ado, let's talk about this deck. Let's be honest, this deck is all the rage right now. This is a highly used deck, at least a combination of this deck. You're going to see a lot of Silvally Rampardos combinations as you're going through ranked or just random matches. A lot of people trialing out this deck, and for good reason. It is a very good combination. Each of these two cards, Rampardos and Silvally, are great in their own right, but when combined create an even better deck. It has a lot of positives when combining these two cards. This deck has a lot of positives in general, does have some drawbacks, but ultimately it is a very solid deck and a very solid combination. First, let's talk about the damage dealer Rampardos. Rampardos is an absolutely fantastic card, has been around a while. If you are looking for a Rampardos card, you're going to want to look in that Space-Time Smackdown Dialga packs. It's a great card. For just one energy, Head Smash deals 130 damage. Of course, there is a drawback. This isn't all rainbows and sunshines for just one energy dealing 130 damage. If you do knock out your opponent from Head Smash, Rampardos also does 50 damage to itself. So dealing 130 damage, if you knock out your opponent, you're going to deal 50 damage to yourself. However, Rampardos is not an EX card. So if Rampardos does get taken out, you are only losing 1 point, where if you take out your opponent's EX Pokemon, your opponent is losing 2 points. So me, I'm gladly going to accept that trade. If you are lucky, maybe you take out an opponent's card that has all of the energy on it. Maybe your opponent doesn't have any energy equipped on anything on the bench, so then you don't have to worry about Rampardos going down to 100 HP. It does have 150 HP. You don't have to worry about losing all of that HP because you've depleted your opponent's energy pool. So that is also a benefit of having Rampardos and taking out an opponent dealing 130 damage. So I absolutely love Rampardos, deals a ton of damage, and can really win a game on its own. I have two Rampardos. I have one Cranidos, and that's just because I want to have the added benefit, the added odds of trying to evolve into Rampardos. I also have the two rare candies, and of course I need the two skull fossils, but Cranidos is just there to maybe get me over that hump, maybe get me there a little bit quicker. So I have 3 opportunities to evolve from a skull fossil into Rampardos instead of just 2. Of course, Cranidos deals a decent amount of damage for just 1 energy. It does deal 50 damage. So if you are able to play it, it can deal a fair amount of damage for just 1 energy. It's also going to be found in those same packs, the Space-Time Smackdown Dialga packs. And of course, you need the 2 skull fossils that are going to evolve into the Cranidos and Rampardos. They're also going to be found in the Space-Time Smackdown Dialga packs. Next, I want to briefly talk about Rare Candy because this is also important for Rampardos. Rare Candy, I've mentioned in most of my previous videos. Rare Candy, if you have Skull Fossil on the playing field, and it's been there for at least a turn, you can utilize Rare Candy if you have Rampardos in your hand to evolve from your Skull Fossil right into your Rampardos, skipping your Stage 1 or skipping your Cranidos in this situation. It's absolutely awesome. It's phenomenal for any stage 2 Pokemon because you can evolve from your basic into your stage 2, skipping that stage 1, and can get your stage 2 playing a lot quicker. And considering that Rampardos is only 1 energy, Rare Candy is going to be even more important to getting Rampardos on the playing field because you don't even have to build up energy on it. You just evolve, utilize the 1 energy that you are given during your turn, and your Rampardos is good to go. So it's absolutely fantastic for Rampardos. And Rare Candy is going to be found in either of the Celestial Guardians packs, the Lunala, or the Solgaleo packs. Now let's talk about the next Pokemon in the deck, and that's going to be Silvally. Silvally is fantastic. For 2 colorless energy is Brave Buddies, which is going to deal 50 damage. But of course, that's not all. There has to be a stipulation, which is why Silvally is absolutely fantastic. So on top of the 50 damage, if you played a supporter card from your hand during this turn, this attack deals 50 more damage. So if you played a supporter card during your turn, and you do have those 2 energy equipped, Silvally is going to deal 100 damage. That is phenomenal, and you can see my deck. I have a bunch of supporter cards, so I can get Silvally up to that 100 with every opportunity that is presented to me. Silvally is going to be found in the most recent pack, the Extra Dimensional Crisis packs, and so is, of course, your Type Null that it evolves from. Type Null is a basic Quick Blow, which is actually a pretty decent move. You deal 20 damage, however, you get to flip a coin, and if the attack is heads, you get to deal 40 damage. So Type Null is even a really good Pokemon because you can deal 40 damage, or at least the potential of dealing 40 damage 50% of the time, which is awesome. It's also going to be found in that Extra Dimensional Crisis packs. So now let's talk about the rest of the deck. I'm going to start with one of the basics, Professor's Research. Professor's Research, you draw 2 cards. Now with Silvally, this has 2 meanings. Not only do you get to draw 2 cards and get to the cards you need in your deck quicker, but if you have Silvally in that active slot and you do have 2 energy, you're going to power it up to dealing 100 damage. So it has an added bonus when paired with Silvally, on top of already being a phenomenal card. Gladion is going to be insanely important. You'll notice that I've foregone the Pokeball in this deck. There's a reason for that. Pokeball only pulls basic Pokemon. And that's all well and good if you have a few basic Pokemon in your deck. You're going to try to pull them from your deck so you can put them on the playing field. With this deck, you only have 2 basic Pokemon, and both of them are Type Null. You automatically start with one of your Type Nulls. That means Pokeball only has the opportunity of pulling that last Type Null. Gladion is going to alleviate those concerns. What Gladion does is you put one random Type Null or Silvally from your deck into your hand. There's a 33% chance that you're going to pull a Type Null. There is a 66% chance that you're going to pull a Silvally if neither of those cards, assuming you start with the type, or knowing you start with the Type Null, if neither Type Null or Silvally in your hands, if you use a Gladion, those are your percentages. It's 33% chance to pull Type Null, 66% chance to pull Silvally. So that's pretty important and pretty good because, one, you have the opportunity to pull a Type Null and put it on the playing field. Or if you don't pull a Type Null, to get that second basic out there, you're going to pull a Silvally and you're going to be able to evolve into your Silvally. So either way, you're going to be benefited regardless of the Pokemon that you draw. On top of that, if you do utilize your Gladion, that is your supporter card. So if you have 2 energy on your Type Null and you pull a Silvally, you evolve and you're able to do 100 damage. So Gladion, again, has a huge purpose, but I'm foregoing a Pokeball. No need to try and draw that second type null. You never know when you're going to get the Pokeball. Could be buried at the bottom of your deck. So I'd rather forego that in favor of adding another supporter card so I can power up my Silvally. I think having that Pokeball in there isn't really going to do much. I'd rather just have all of these supporter cards that are going to throw my Silvally to 100 damage, as well as enhance my strategy for this deck, because a lot of the cards I have are really going to help me out. Like I said, the Gladian is going to draw either a Silvally or a type null from the deck, which is either going to allow me to evolve the type null I started with, or it's going to allow me to get another basic on the playing field. So I have a second basic just in case. Gladian's going to be found in the extra dimensional crisis packs. Now, foregoing that Pokeball, you can see I have a lot of other supporters in my deck. I love Sabrina. Sabrina is great for multiple reasons. Not only can you put a Pokemon into that active slot that your opponent doesn't want, but it can really throw off your opponent's strategy, and that's what I love about it. Throwing off your opponent's strategy is absolutely huge and crucial to winning the battle. Less and less decks are utilizing Leaf at this point. For those of you who don't know, Leaf allows your Pokemon to have a 2 energy less retreat cost. So it's a lot easier to retreat with Leaf in your deck. A lot more decks aren't utilizing Leaf. They aren't utilizing X speed to draw their Pokemon back without wasting energy. So you're going to put a Pokemon, or hopefully put a Pokemon from your opponent's bench into that active slot for one of 2 reasons. Either you're going to force a Pokemon there that you're going to want to attack and deal damage to, or you're just going to force a Pokemon there that your opponent doesn't want there, and it's going to be a huge pain for your opponent to have that Pokemon retreat. This is going to be awesome because if your opponent has a bunch of energy built up on one Pokemon and you force it out of the active slot with Sabrina, they may not be attacking for a little while, which is why I absolutely love Sabrina, and I love 2 of them in this deck. I did mention Gladian has 2, Professor's Research has 2, Rare Candy, Type Null, Silvally, all 2. Because the last 3 supporter cards, I have 1 of each. My Guzma, my Pokemon Center Lady, and my Red. And there is a use for all of them here. There's also a way you can kind of mix and match. Maybe you want 2 Poké Center Ladies, maybe you want 2 Reds, maybe you want 2 Guzmas. But I found 1 of each really does the trick. If I was going for 2 of one of them, I would probably go for 2 of Poké Center Lady, and I would forego either the Guzma or the Red. Again, it's always tough to tell because there are going to be decks where you don't face EX Pokemon, and the Red's going to be worthless. For example, the deck I'm showing you doesn't have an EX Pokemon, which means the Red is worthless. Granted, it still works in a sense of it will power up Silvally utilizing Red, so it's not completely worthless to have in your deck if you face an opponent that doesn't have an EX Pokemon, but it's not going to help you in the long run. Guzma, same thing. Let's talk about all of these cards, and then I'll talk about why some of these cards may or may not be useful in certain matches. So Red, I just mentioned. For Red, for those of you who don't know, it deals 20 extra damage during your turn for an attack against an EX Pokemon. So if you attack a non-EX Pokemon, you're not going to do an extra 20 damage. So again, if you face a deck that doesn't have an EX Pokemon, Red isn't going to be worth too much. Yes, it will still power up Silvally, so you don't have to worry about that, but you could be foregoing a Poké Center Lady, a second one, which can heal you. But Red is still worthwhile because a lot of decks still run an EX Pokemon, which is why I have one in this deck. And you can find that from the Shining Revelry packs. Guzma is another card just like Red. Guzma can be worthwhile, but it can also be worthless at times. Guzma, for those of you who don't know, you discard all Pokemon tools attached to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So it can be great. A lot of decks are still running tools. There has been an uptick in the Poison Barb. A lot of people are still running Giant Cape and Rocky Helm, so Guzma is definitely worthwhile. However, you can see, again, my deck as case in point, I don't have any Pokemon tools. So it's another card that could potentially be useful, but could also be worthless, which is why, again, I only have one in this deck. But it can be nice to clear off your Pokemon, your opponent's Pokemon tools, so you can get rid of whatever they have. Maybe you don't want to be poisoned because they have Poison Barb, they have Rocky Helm dealing damage to you, they have Giant Cape, so you're going to eliminate some of that extra health. So Guzma's nice, but again, not always worthwhile. I do like having one in this deck, though, to kind of clear off those nasty tools that I don't want to deal with. So I do have one in this deck. That's going to be found in the Celestial Guardians packs. And I do want to touch back on Red. Red is also nice because Rampardos only deals 130 damage. Giving Rampardos that extra 20 against EX Pokemon is going to clear a lot of breaking points for EX Pokemon. For example, you have your Darkrai that's utilized a lot, that's at 140 HP. Your Articuno's that's at 140 HP. Your Giratina that's at 150 HP, so you're going to be able to clear a lot of breaking points and kill Pokemon that Rampardos without Red will not be able to take out. So that's another reason why to have Red in this deck. And last but not least, Pokecenter Lady, probably the most useful of the three supporters, because you know for a fact you're going to be taking damage. You're going to be taking damage one way or the other. Your opponent is going to attack you. There's no way of preventing your opponent from attacking you. And even if your opponent doesn't attack you, your opponent can potentially have tools that you didn't clear off with Guzma. Your opponent could do damage to you by Rampardos doing damage to itself. You're going to be taking damage, so Pokecenter Lady is going to be the most useful to heal up from that damage. That's why I have Pokecenter Lady, which is going to be found in the Shining Revelry packs. Ultimately, I absolutely love this deck. I love this combination. Like I said, one of each of those cards, Guzma, Pokecenter Lady, and Red, just feels right. Because at the end of the day, you may not need Guzma, you may not need Red, but they're nice to have just in case. You really never know what your opponent is going to have. And really, the bread and butter of this deck is just getting Silvally out there, playing it as quickly as possible, getting as much damage as possible, and letting your Rampardos come in as the sweeper, which is really nice because it deals so much damage. But let me know in the comments section what Rampardos Silvally deck you're utilizing. What switches would you make in this deck to make it your perfect deck? Let me know in the comments section what switches you'd like to see in this deck that you think would make it even better. I love this deck. I've been killing with it. Let me know in the comment section. I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, peace.